Sir, you are not welcome here. Please leave before we call security. We know the tainted. Those words weren't shouted by a stranger. They came from the lips of my own daughter, standing in a white dress that I had paid for with the sweat of half my life. Can you imagine what it feels like to be erased in a single breath? I froze in the doorway of the hotel ballroom. The air was thick with perfume and polished wealth. Guests turned their heads, some whispering, some smirking, all curious to see the man who apparently didn't belong. I was holding a gift in my hands, wrapped with trembling fingers the night before. Olivia, I whispered, though my voice cracked. I only came to see you smile on your wedding day. They welcome Vestful Bess, her new husband, Nathan, stepped beside her with a cold grin. His tuxedo looked like it had been tailored by angels. Mr. Miller, this is a family occasion. Let's not create a scene. They welcome Vestful Bess, family. Wasn't I her only family after her mother passed away? I had worked nights and weekends, skipped meals, ignored my own dreams, just to keep food on the table and a roof over her head. Now she stood inches away, but miles apart, embarrassed by the man who had given her everything. The orchestra kept playing, violins weaving soft melodies that no one truly heard. Crystal glasses clinked, but in my chest there was only silence, the kind of silence that comes when you realize your child doesn't see you as a father anymore, but as an obstacle. My knees felt weak, but I forced myself to set the gift on a table crowded with roses. I met Olivia's eyes one last time. Her gaze slid past me as if I were nothing but a shadow at her celebration. I understand, I murmured. I wouldn't want to disturb your perfect night. And with that, I walked toward the exit. Each step felt like a nail driven deeper into my heart. The ballroom manager reached me before I touched the door. Sir, our front desk says your name is not on the list. Please allow us to escort you out. Her smile was tight. I turned back to the room. Olivia stood under a ring of lights. A mirrored arch glowed behind her. Nothing, said Father. I lifted a hand to calm them. I am not here to cause trouble. I only want to give my daughter a hug. I will leave after that. The manager hesitated. Then Nathan walked over with 2 groomsmen. His cufflinks caught the light. Mr. Miller, this is not the right time. You should have called before showing up. I did call, I said. I left a message last week. He gave a small shrug that looked rehearsed. We have a tight guest list. You understand. Please let the staff guide you to the elevator. I looked at Olivia. Her hands were clasped around a bouquet as if she needed a shield. Her mouth trembled for a second. Then she looked away. A violinist kept playing a slow melody. People in silver chairs were staring now. A woman lifted her phone for a picture. The flash skipped across my face like cold water. I set the wrapped gift on the nearest table. What is in the box? Nathan asked. A quilt, I said. My wife finished it the week before she passed. She stitched our daughter's name into the corner. Olivia flinched like the sound of her own name stung. Nathan nodded once. We will have it shipped back to you. My hands tightened until my knuckles hurt. It is a gift for her. Not for me. He smiled. We appreciate the sentiment. This is a private evening. Security will make sure you get downstairs safely. The manager gestured. 2 security guards approached. They were careful. They asked if I needed help getting my coat. I did not bring a coat. I had come to see my child. I looked at Olivia again. Remember when we practiced walking in your first heels? I said, you were 12. You held my arm and laughed every time you wobbled. Her chin lifted. Please stop, she said. Her voice was soft but final. Nathan's mother appeared at her side. We all respect what you have done, she said. Tonight is delicate. Please give us this space. I wanted to ask a dozen questions. How did I become your stain? When did love start to look cheap? But my voice would not rise above the music. I saw the slideshow on a screen near the bar. Olivia at 6 with a golden retriever. Olivia at 10 with a soccer trophy. Olivia at 16 at a beach with friends. Photo after photo marched by. I was not in any of them. I felt something inside me fold. The security guards waited a step away. The manager stood with her hands together like in prayer. I touched the gift one last time. Keep it safe, I said. The manager nodded. A ring bearer in a tiny suit tugged my sleeve. Mister, are you leaving already? His mother pulled him back with an apology. I smiled at the boy. Yes. I forgot my invitation. Nathan moved slightly closer. Thank you for understanding. Olivia needs peace right now. I met his eyes. Take care of her. He held my gaze without blinking. I always do. The guards turned toward the hall. The doors closed behind us on a wave of music and perfume. Outside the ballroom, everything was colder. The carpet muffled our steps. We passed a table where a hostess checked wristbands. Guest wristband, she said. I looked at my hands. I shook my head. The guard pressed the elevator button. No one spoke. The doors opened. We rode down in a slow box of mirrors. I saw a man with tired eyes and a tie that did not quite fit. When the doors opened, the guards stepped aside. The lobby was wide and bright. Sir, can we arrange a car? One of them asked. No. Thank you. I live close. I walked to the glass doors. Outside, rain tapped the sidewalk. An attendant held out an umbrella. I waved it away. As the doors slid open, the ballroom song shifted to applause above me somewhere. I stood under the awning and tried to breathe. My heartbreak felt cold. I pulled out my phone. A text to Olivia glowed half-written. Proud of you. Love you. Call me if you need anything. I stared at the words. Then I deleted them one by one. I placed the phone back in my pocket. A valet jogged by with a careful smile. Sir, are you waiting for someone? No. Just leaving. He nodded and rushed on. I turned toward the street. Headlights slid past in glossy lines. Somewhere above, my daughter was dancing without me. I told myself to keep moving. One step, then another. I did not look back. I reached the corner and pressed the crosswalk button. The rain eased for a moment. I walked the last blocks home with my head down. I unlocked my door and stood in the quiet. Only the hum of the fridge answered me. The silence did not hold me. It pressed. I sank into a chair and waited for my hands to stop shaking. They did not. I covered my eyes and tried to steady my breath. I told myself I was fine. I was not fine. A father can be strong in storms. He still breaks in private. I sat in the dark kitchen until the first light of dawn crept through the blinds. Sleep never came. My thoughts kept circling back to a single question. How could Olivia push me away, as if 30 years had meant nothing? To understand the answer, I had to walk back through every sacrifice I had made. Every brick of my life had been laid for her. I remembered the night her mother, Claire, slipped away in a hospital bed. Olivia was only 4. She clutched my sleeve and asked, "Daddy, when will Mommy wake up?" I had no words. From that day forward, I promised myself I would be mother and father, provider and protector. I never remarried, not because no one asked, but because I feared no one would love her as fiercely as I did. When Olivia turned 6, she wanted ballet lessons. I worked double shifts pouring concrete. My hands blistered and raw, but I paid for every class. I sat in the back of that cold studio, smelling of dust and sweat, and clapped louder than anyone when she twirled across the floor. She beamed at me with missing teeth, and I thought, this is worth it. At 8, she caught pneumonia. I slept upright in a hospital chair for 5 nights. Every time she coughed, I whispered prayers into the sterile air. The bills nearly drowned me. But I sold my pickup truck and rode the bus to job sites so she could have the best care. She never knew that. And I never told her. Middle school brought new demands. Brand name shoes, private tutors, summer camps. Kids teased her when she wore hand-me-downs. So I skipped meals to save up for the sneakers she wanted. When she thanked me with a quick hug, I thought it was enough. By high school, Olivia's world widened. Friends with parents who were lawyers, bankers, doctors. She begged to attend an elite academy outside our district. The tuition was more than I earned in 2 months. I swallowed my pride, took out a loan, and worked nights as a janitor in addition to running my small contracting crew. I'd mop floors at midnight and rise at 5 to mix cement. The exhaustion nearly broke me. But when Olivia got straight A's, I convinced myself it was destiny unfolding. Her sweet 16 came with a demand for a car. I found a used Honda that I polished until it shone. She smiled politely but muttered, "Everyone else drives BMWs." I laughed it off, telling myself teenagers never see clearly. I told myself she'd understand when she was older. College was another mountain. She dreamed of studying architecture at Stanford. Tuition, housing, books numbers that made my chest ache. I remortgaged the house I had built with my own hands. I ate canned beans for months. She never saw that I wore the same boots for 3 years until the soles split. I sent every spare dollar to California, telling her not to worry, to focus on her future. She called home less often. At first, once a week, then once a month, eventually, only when she needed money. "Dad, could you wire me $3,000 for a class trip to Europe? Dad, the rent is higher than expected. Dad, I lost my phone. Can you send enough for a new one?" Always urgent, always expensive. I sent it anyway. Every time. I built my company brick by brick, contract by contract. I kept 60 men employed through recessions and storms. I skipped vacations, turned down hobbies, ignored the loneliness in my own chest. My life was narrowed down to one goal: keep her life wide open. And then the engagement. Nathan came from a wealthy family. His parents hosted dinners where I felt invisible in my work boots and sunburned skin. I saw the way Olivia flushed when I spoke too loudly or used words that didn't belong in polished company. I told myself it was nerves. That love was stronger than shame. When she asked about the wedding budget, she didn't say please. She slid spreadsheets across my kitchen table as if I were an investor. Not her father. Imported flowers, designer gown, venue fees higher than my yearly salary when I first started. I said yes to it all. I wanted her to have everything her heart desired. And yet, last night, she looked me in the eye and told me I did not belong. The weight of that crushed me more than any bill, any long night, any sacrifice. Every sacrifice I had made was invisible to her now. Every drop of sweat, every dollar, every sleepless night had been erased in front of a room full of strangers. I pressed my palms against my tired face. For 30 years, I had poured myself empty so she could be full. And in one breath, she told me I was nothing. Morning found me at the kitchen table, with the quilt beside my elbow. I laid my hands on the stitches and waited for the ache to settle. It did not settle. It sharpened. Something inside me clicked into place. I could not keep pretending that love without respect was still love. I opened the drawer where I keep my ledgers. I set a fresh notebook on the table. On the first page, I wrote a sentence I had never allowed myself to write. No more money without gratitude. No more paying to be invisible. I brewed coffee I did not drink. I powered on the old laptop. The screen lit my tired face and the small clock told me it was barely 7. I logged into Puget First Bank. The security code arrived by text. I typed it in with steady fingers. A list of pending charges filled the screen. Aurora Grand Hotel, North Harbor Catering, Larkspur Floral Studio, Bluefinch Quartet, Honeywell Photo, Silver Thread Linens. The totals looked like a staircase to the clouds. I had climbed every step alone. I clicked the number for customer service. A woman answered with a calm voice. "Good morning. This is Maya at Puget First. How may I help you?" "My name is Aaron Miller," I said. "I need to stop payment on a list of pending transactions tied to my card and account." She asked for my details. I gave them. There was a pause while she verified me through more questions. Birthday. Previous address. Last deposit. Everything matched. "All right, Mr. Miller," she said. "I see a series of wedding-related charges. Are those the ones?" "Yes. They were authorized by me. I am now revoking that authorization. The services were conditional on my attendance. The condition was denied. I need holds placed and payments reversed, where possible. I need chargebacks opened where required. I need it documented in writing." She grew careful and professional. "I can place immediate holds and escalate. Your card will be locked while we process, then reissued. Do you want text copies of confirmation numbers?" "Yes. Please also note that the account owner revokes all vendor access until further notice." She read the list back to me. I confirmed each entry. Her voice stayed even. The numbers ticked into the system like nails into a board. When she finished, she gave me the case reference codes. I wrote every code in the notebook. "Thank you," I said. She hesitated. "I hope your day gets better." I wanted to tell her that it would first have to break. I only said thank you again and ended the call. Next came the vendors. I took a breath and lifted the phone. North Harbor Catering answered first. A man with a bright tone said his name was Caleb. "Good morning," I said. "This is Aaron Miller, the person who funded last night's reception. Payment authorization has been revoked through my bank. Please secure your equipment and remaining inventory. I suggest you contact the wedding party for new arrangements." His tone changed in a heartbeat. "Are you canceling in the middle of service?" "The event is over for me," I said. "I will not dispute charges for food already served. But you are not to charge further." He swallowed and thanked me for the notice. He understood. Larkspur Floral Studio answered second. The owner, a woman named June, told me the orchids had looked beautiful. I said they probably did. Then I gave the same message. She was quiet for a long breath. "We invested a lot in those arrangements," she said. "I know," I said. "I invested a life. I suggest you retrieve what you can." She said she would send a team. I called Bluefinch Quartet. I called Silver Thread Linens. I called Honeywell Photo. I used the same measured words every time. Payment authorization was revoked. Protect your assets. Speak with the couple for any new terms. Some argued. Some pleaded. Most went silent and said they understood. I wrote down each name, each time, each call. The notebook filled like a map. When the last call ended, the house felt very quiet. I opened the ledger drawer again and took out a folder marked house. Inside were the papers for my mortgage, the roof repair that I still had not scheduled, the insurance for storms we never seem ready for. I placed the wedding file on top. I slid the quilt into the empty space on the table. I looked at the stitches my wife had placed with her tired hands. She believed the quilt would keep our girl warm on cold nights. I believed it too. I still do. But warmth without truth only delays the cold. My phone lit up. A message from an unknown number. "Mr. Miller, this is the hotel accounting office. We have been notified of a possible payment dispute related to last night's event. Please call. I saved the number and typed a reply. I will provide documentation from the bank. All further questions should be directed to the wedding couple. I hit send. I thought about calling Olivia. I thought about telling her I loved her and that I would always love her. Then I pictured her eyes in the doorway of the ballroom. Not angry. Not sad. Distant. Embarrassed. I set the phone down and let the feeling pass. Love cannot mean payment on demand. Love cannot mean a father buys his own right to stand in a room. I went to the garage and pulled down a plastic bin that held old receipts. My handwriting stared up at me from a dozen years. Tutoring. Braces. Summer camp. Shoes I could never afford when I was a boy. I stacked everything on the dining table under the window. The sky outside was the color of steel. Rain rolled down the glass. I stood there and watched a minute pass. Then another. I told myself the same thing I tell my crew when the ground is soaked and the pour must happen. Do the work in front of you. Do not look at the whole job at once. I opened a fresh spreadsheet on the laptop. I typed in columns. Date. Description. Amount. Category. Notes. I began to enter the numbers. Doctor visits. Ballet shoes. College deposits. Rent transfers. Each line a memory. Each cell a small truth. I did not add them yet. I only recorded. I wanted the record to breathe before I faced the total. Around noon I made a sandwich I did not taste. I cleaned the counter the way my wife used to clean it. With small patient circles, until it shone. I took the quilt and folded it carefully. I placed it in a clean box. I sealed the box and wrote Olivia on the top. My hands shook for a moment. Then steadied. The phone rang again. Aurora Grand Hotel. The manager on line 2. I answered. She used a careful voice. Mr. Miller. We have your bank notice. We are sorry for any distress. Will you be attending any follow-up meetings with the couple? No. I said. I will not attend meetings where I am not welcome. The financial relationship is closed. She understood. She offered to mail me any items that belonged to me. I thanked her and declined. There was nothing of me left in that room except the quilt and my absence. I locked the front door and sat at the table again. The ledger waited. I picked up the pen and wrote another sentence under the first one. I will help my daughter become an adult, but I will not fund her disrespect. I underlined the words once. The ink looked very dark. I closed my eyes and finally felt something like calm. Not peace. Not yet. But a line had been drawn. My love would stand inside it. My money would stand behind it. Whatever came next would come. I had done what a father must do when love is used like a card that never declines. I had set a limit. I had told the truth. I had chosen to stop paying for my own erasure. I looked at the clock. It was almost 1. I saved the spreadsheet. I put the notebook in my bag. I washed my face in the bathroom sink. Then I sat by the window and waited for the afternoon to begin its slow turn. Somewhere across town, a ballroom stood full of flowers and lights. Somewhere, a new husband was telling a new story about class and order. Somewhere, my daughter was dancing on a floor I had paid to lay. The storm would come to that room soon. I could feel it forming like weather. But not yet. First, there had to be silence. By late afternoon, the storm I had summoned began to break. I sat by my window with the rain still whispering against the glass when my phone buzzed. A text from North Harbor Catering. Mr. Miller. As discussed, our team is ceasing all service at the reception. Please be aware the couple has been informed. I set the phone down. I imagined the trays of lamb and salmon whisked away before plates reached the tables. Wine bottles lifted back into crates. Another message arrived minutes later. Larkspur Floral Studio is on-site reclaiming arrangements. Guests are upset. Bride is demanding answers. Please confirm once more that payments are revoked. I typed a single word in reply. Confirmed. I could see it unfolding in my mind as clearly as if I were standing in the ballroom. Waiters removing silver lids, leaving tables bare. Florists pulling orchids from glass vases, stripping the room of its beauty. Guests murmuring in confusion. Forks paused halfway to their mouths. Someone would try to soothe the crowd. But whispers spread faster than comfort. I imagined Olivia's face when the quartet stopped playing. One moment the sweet rise of strings filled the air. The next, silence as instruments were packed into black cases. Michael, ever the polished groom, would bark orders, demand explanations. But the vendors had no loyalty to him. Their contracts were with me, and my signature was now void. The hotel staff called soon after. Mr. Miller, our accounts department confirms authorization holds. The couple will need to settle balances immediately to continue using the space. I thanked the woman and hung up. My chest tightened, not with regret, but with the gravity of what was happening. I had lit a match, and now the fire was eating through the polished facade of their perfect evening. In the ballroom, I pictured Olivia's smile cracking in front of her new in-laws. The music gone, the flowers gone, guests asking why the food had stopped. The quilt I had left behind sat unopened on a side table, its quiet truth buried under panic. An hour later, the first call came. My phone vibrated across the table. Olivia's name flashing. I let it ring. A voicemail followed. Her voice trembled, sharp with disbelief. Dad, what's happening? The caterers just left. People are staring. Call me back right now. I didn't. The second call came minutes later. More urgent. Dad, please, they're saying you canceled everything. Tell me it isn't true. Michael's family is furious. I need you. Still, I stayed silent. By the third message, her composure was gone. They're taking the flowers. The photographer says he won't hand over pictures until someone pays him. Dad, you can't do this. This is my wedding. Her voice cracked on the word wedding. I closed my eyes and pictured her. Once a little girl in a tutu, twirling for my applause. Now trapped in a hall she thought she owned. She had wanted me invisible. Now she was seeing what my absence truly meant. Reports came faster. The florist's van idled outside, loading containers of orchids while guests gawked. Caterers carried trays through the front doors as if evacuating. The string quartet drove off, their music swallowed by the night. The photographer shut his laptop and walked out. The ballroom emptied of every illusion, leaving only the truth. None of it stood. Finally, Olivia's fourth voicemail landed, ragged with panic. Dad, the hotel manager says the bill is unpaid. They're threatening to shut the lights if we can't cover it. Michael's family is shouting. Guests are leaving. Please, Dad, I'm begging you. I don't know what to do. I sat with the phone in my hand. But I didn't answer. The collapse had to finish. She had to feel the floor vanish beneath her. To understand that foundations are not free. Through the rain-streaked glass of my window, I could almost hear it, the silence in the ballroom where laughter had been. The awkward coughs of guests leaving early. The weight of shame pressing on every polished surface. My daughter had banished me from her life. And in a single night she learned what my presence had always held up. The calls kept coming long after midnight. My phone lit up again and again. Olivia's name burning across the screen like a signal fire. I let it ring until it died each time, filling the dark room with the hum of unanswered need. The silence between each call was louder than the ringing. It carried the weight of years I had ignored. Years when I gave without question, and she took without thought. At 2 a.m, I listened to the first voicemail. Her voice was brittle. Dad, They shut down the ballroom. We had to leave the hotel. People were whispering, taking videos. Michael is furious. Please, tell me what's happening. I pressed delete without saving. The second voicemail came an hour later. I'm in the car with Michael. His parents are shouting. They want to know why everything was in your name. I don't know what to tell them. Dad, I need you. Her sob cracked in the background before the message ended. Delete. By dawn, the screen showed 12 missed calls. I sat at the kitchen table with the quilt box still there. The stitches holding memories that she had buried under shame. Outside, the sky turned from black to gray. The house was quiet except for the refrigerator humming, the clock ticking, and my heart remembering everything I had endured for her. I thought back to nights when I held her feverish body against mine, whispering stories until her breath steadied. To mornings I slipped sandwiches into her lunch bag, even when I had none for myself. To afternoons I raced from job sites, steel dust still in my hair, just to make it to her school plays in time. Once, she had been my shadow, chasing me through parks, asking for piggyback rides, tugging at my sleeve for another bedtime story. She used to press her small hand into mine and say, "Promise you'll never leave me." Daddy, I had promised, and I had kept that promise, even when it cost me everything. But last night she had released me with her own lips. Sir, you are not welcome here. She had left me first. My phone buzzed again. Another voicemail. This time her voice was hoarse. Dad, please, the vendors are threatening legal action. Michael says his family won't cover it. I don't know where to turn. You've always fixed things. Please fix this. I closed my eyes and let the silence return. Fixing everything had built this prison for both of us. Every time I solved a problem with money, I carved away a piece of her strength. Every time I said yes, I taught her she never had to say thank you. Now the silence was my answer. I stepped outside into the chill morning air. The street was empty. A thin fog clung to the pavement. I breathed in deep and felt the weight shift inside me. For the first time in years, I wasn't rushing to her rescue. For the first time, she would stand alone. Hours later, the phone was still buzzing. 14 calls. 15. 16. I didn't answer. I sat in the yard listening to the quiet, the wind threading through bare branches. My silence was not cruelty. It was a lesson. And yet, as the day wore on, the memories cut deeper. Claire's face in the hospital bed, whispering, "Take care of her for me." Olivia, at 5, in pink pajamas, asking for just one more story. Her laughter when I pushed her higher on the swing, shouting, "Don't let go." Dad, I whispered into the still air. I didn't let go, but maybe I held on too long. The phone lit up again on the table beside me. I didn't move. The silence pressed close. Heavy but necessary. For the first time, she would learn that love cannot be demanded, and sacrifice cannot be forgotten. I cleared the table and set out the folders like a map of the last 3 decades. The house was quiet enough to hear the paper slide under my hands. I opened the laptop. The spreadsheet glowed. Empty cells waited for the truth. I typed the first line. Date. Description. Amount. Category. Notes. I reached for the oldest folder. Medical. I found the invoice from the winter. Olivia caught pneumonia. 5 nights in a small room that smelled like bleach and fear. 14,000 after insurance. I entered the number. I remembered the way her breath rattled and the way her fingers reached for mine in the dark. Braces came next. 7,000 for a straight smile that lit my world. I added the receipts for checkups. Another 1,000. I pictured Claire's favorite habit, She would touch our daughter's chin and say, "Show me that bright moon." I wrote "bright moon" in the notes and swallowed hard. The school folder was thick. Public school lasted until 9th grade. Then she begged for the academy across town. I said yes. Tuition was $28,000 a year. 4 years. $112,000. I wrote it down and felt the number land like a weight on my chest. I added tutoring. $18,000 spread across 2 years when calculus turned hard, and a guidance counselor said she could reach higher with help. I added ballet lessons from her early years. $12,000 in small checks that felt large at the time. I remembered sitting on cold metal chairs while other parents scrolled their phones. I never looked away from her. The car folder still smelled like oil. A used Honda for $7,000 the year she turned 16. We could have done buses. She wanted independence. Repairs and insurance took another $3,000 by graduation. I added the entries and thought of the night she came home late and I waited on the porch with a lantern. She laughed and said the curfew was silly. I wrote the word porch. College was the mountain. Her dream was Stanford. The letter came in a white envelope that trembled in her hands. She screamed and hugged me until my ribs ached. I knew then that love would carry the bill. Tuition was $54,000 a year. 4 years. $216,000. Housing and meals added $16,000 a year. $64,000. I logged the book costs. $9,000 across 8 semesters. Flights home. 4 trips a year. $12,000. I added a new laptop when the old one died during finals week. $2,000. I wrote finals week and remembered her crying voice on the phone, and my answer, that had always been, yes. There were other lines that did not fit into tidy boxes. Phones that broke. Shoes that made her feel brave. Dresses for dances. 2 summers of rent near campus when internships paid nothing. $10,000 in transfers marked for food, which I suspect often meant pride. I entered those numbers and felt a slow ache move through my shoulders. I opened the wedding folder last. Aurora Grand Deposit. $38,000. Catering deposit. $26,000. Florals. $12,000. Quartet. $5,000. Photographer. $6,000. Dress and fittings. $9,000. Each figure came with a small memory. A call where she did not say please. A voicemail that named a price and a deadline. A meeting where Nathan's parents spoke around me as if I were a chair. I added gratuities I had set aside in an envelope because I wanted the workers to feel respect at the end of the night. I closed the folder and set it down. The totals waited. I let them wait a moment longer. I reached for a glass of water and watched the bubbles cling to the side. My hand shook. I steadied it and returned to the keyboard. I took a breath and pressed the sum key. The number rose like a tide. Private academy. $112,000. Tutoring and test prep. $18,000. Ballet and early arts. $12,000. Medical and braces. $22,000. First car and insurance. $10,000. College tuition. $216,000. College housing and meals. $64,000. Books and flights. $21,000. Tech and phones. $8,000. Summer rents and support. $10,000. Wedding deposits and services. $96,000. $585,000. I stared at the screen until the numbers blurred. I leaned back and pressed my palms over my face. The room seemed to tilt. I lowered my hands and read the number again. I whispered it to the quiet room, as if speaking it would make it real. The money mattered. Of course it mattered. But the money held more than dollars. It held the hours I left home before dawn. It held the weekends I gave to job sites in the rain so I could write checks on Monday. It held nights when I counted change on the counter and nights when I fell asleep in a chair with my boots still on. It held birthdays where I smiled through fear because the mortgage payment was due and a field trip cost more than I had. I created a second sheet. I labeled it time. I began to count the hours. Ballet recitals and practices. Hundreds. School meetings after long shifts. Dozens. Drives to doctors. Drives to tutors. Drives to airport drop-offs while the sky was still black. I had no receipts for those. Only a body that ached in the bones. Only a heart that had stretched itself thin for so long it forgot its own shape. I wrote another sentence in the notebook. Love is a ledger of choices. I turned the page and made a list of rules for myself. I will not pay for what erases me. I will not fund a lie that tells my daughter she is made of silk and not of effort. I will not trade respect for access. I printed the spreadsheets and punched holes and slid the pages into a simple binder. I added copies of major receipts. I wrote a title on the front in block letters. Record of support. I did not add the word love. It was there in every line already. I called my foreman to say I would be late the next morning. I needed appointments. I needed advice. I needed someone who would help me stand firm when my resolve shook. He told me to take the time. He told me the crew would handle the poor. He said he was sorry for the way the world can be. Evening slid across the windows. I made dinner and ate without tasting. I washed my plate and set it in the rack like a ritual. I stood by the quilt box and let my hand rest on the lid. Claire would have asked me what the total was. I would have told her. She would have nodded. She would have said it is time to teach our girl the cost of a life. The phone was quiet for once. Olivia had stopped calling. Perhaps she slept. Perhaps she stared at a ceiling of a room she could not pay for. Perhaps she rewrote the story to make me the villain. The number in the binder did not care which story she told. It did not shout. It simply waited. I sat back down and signed the bottom of the summary pages. Name. Date. I added a final line under the total. I wrote the words slowly so there would be no mistake. This is not revenge. This is clarity. I closed the binder and set it by the door. Tomorrow I would carry it to someone who would speak in the careful language of law. Tomorrow I would turn love into terms a court could understand. Tonight I let the reckoning sit in the room with me. It was not warm. It was not cruel. It was only true. Morning came heavy and gray. I carried the binder under my arm like a weapon I had never wanted to use. The air outside smelled of wet asphalt. The street glistening from a night of steady rain. I drove downtown, the wipers beating a slow rhythm against the windshield. Each pass marking the end of hesitation. The law office sat on the corner of 3rd and Pine. A tall building with stone lions crouched on either side of the doorway. Inside, polished wood and leather chairs whispered of old money. I felt out of place, but I forced myself forward. At the reception desk, a young man smiled with practiced warmth. Mr. Miller? Yes. You have an appointment with Miss Reynolds. Please follow me. He led me down a hall lined with certificates and framed articles about courtroom victories. The conference room was bright with morning light. Miss Reynolds rose from her chair when I entered. Her silver hair framed sharp eyes that saw more than most people said. Please. Sit. I placed the binder on the table between us. She touched the cover lightly. This is everything? 28 years. I said. Every dollar. Every receipt. Every sacrifice. She opened the binder. Her eyes scanning the rows of numbers with the speed of someone who had lived in ledgers for decades. The total stopped her for a breath. Over $500,000. I nodded. And every cent tied to one person. My daughter. Miss Reynolds adjusted her glasses. You understand what this means legally? Yes. I said. I understand it may look like gifts. She leaned back in her chair. It can look like gifts. But intent is flexible when documentation is this precise. You recorded dates. Reasons. Categories. That shows a pattern. A court could classify this as long-term support subject to recovery, especially with continued expectation of repayment or acknowledgement. She tapped her pen against the table. We can file a demand letter. 30 days for repayment. Failure triggers civil action. It will shock her. It's meant to, I said. Not to destroy her, but to wake her. For years she has treated me like a bank account that never closes. She forgot the person behind it. Miss. Reynolds flipped through the binder, pausing at the section marked wedding. Nearly 100,000 in recent charges. She looked at me. And she told you not to attend? She told me I wasn't welcome. She invited strangers to enjoy what my life had built. And she erased me. Silence filled the room, heavy as judgment. Finally, she pulled a legal pad close. We will draft the letter now. Formal, professional, precise. It will carry the weight of law, not anger. She wrote in quick strokes, the words crisp and merciless. To Olivia Miller and Nathan Carter. This letter serves as a formal demand for repayment of documented financial support, totaling $585,000. Payment must be made within 30 days or legal proceedings will commence. She slid the draft toward me. I read every line. My chest tightened. But I nodded. Yes. That's it. She studied my face. You don't want revenge. Do you? No. I want respect. I want her to see the truth in numbers she cannot ignore. By noon, the letter was finalized on official stationery. Miss. Reynolds placed it in an envelope with her firm's seal. Courier delivery. Signature required. She said. It will arrive today. She closed the binder and pushed it back toward me. Keep this safe. It is not just evidence. It is your story. I carried the binder back to my truck. The weight of it seemed heavier now. Not because of the paper, but because of what it meant. In a few hours, Olivia would open an envelope that would change everything. She would see her life written in numbers. Debts. Sacrifices she had never named. On the drive home, my phone buzzed. A voicemail notification blinked. I didn't listen. I knew it was her. Or Nathan. Or one of his parents. They would learn soon enough. By mid-afternoon, Miss. Reynolds called. Delivery confirmed. Signature obtained. I parked the truck in my driveway and sat with the engine off, staring at the quiet street. I imagined Olivia at a hotel desk, confusion clouding her face when the clerk handed her the envelope. I imagined Nathan tearing it open, his confidence faltering with each line. Inside that letter was no anger, no shouting, no broken plates, only truth, measured and undeniable. Truth written in ink that could not be erased. The silence of my house greeted me when I stepped inside. The binder sat on the table where I placed it. Like a sentinel, I poured a glass of water, sat down, and waited. The phone would ring. The messages would come. But this time, I had drawn the line in law, not in hope. That night, the first message arrived. Olivia's voice. Trembling. Dad. I just got this letter. This isn't real. Is it? Please. Tell me it isn't real. I pressed delete. The second message came minutes later. Nathan's tone. Sharp. Mr. Miller. This is outrageous. You can't treat gifts as debts. We'll fight this. I set the phone aside. The third message was softer. Broken. Dad. Please talk to me. I don't understand what I did wrong. I don't know how to fix this. I turned off the phone. The binder sat beside me. For the first time in years, the silence belonged to me. Monday began with a knock on my office door at the yard. Dave, my foreman, held a printout. His jaw was tight. "You should see this," he said. A post was spreading online. The photo showed my daughter in her dress. Eyes red. The caption called me a cruel father who ruined his child's wedding out of spite. It claimed I cut the lights to punish her for choosing love over blood. Hundreds of comments stacked under it. A few tagged local clients. Another post followed. Nathan's mother wrote a long message to her circle. She painted me as unstable and vengeful. Every line was a blade wrapped in concern. By lunch, the rumor had moved from phones to job sites. 2 suppliers called to ask if I was well. A city inspector asked if I needed a delay. He sounded kind, but I heard the doubt. I set the phone face down and watched a backhoe swing. Work is honest. Gossip is not. Dave stood beside me. "Tell me what you need," he said. "I need truth to speak louder than noise," I said. Back in the office, I opened the binder. I took photos of the summary page. I scanned the wedding section. I wrote a simple statement anyone could read. "I am a father who provided for his daughter for 28 years. I was told I was not welcome at the event I paid for. I stopped further payments. Here is a transparent record of my support. No insults. Only facts." I called Miss Reynolds and asked if sharing would hurt our case. "Keep private data covered," she said. "Totals and categories are yours to share." She warned me it would be permanent. "It is already permanent," I said. "The lie is traveling faster than the truth." At 2, I posted the statement with the summaries. "If you have questions, ask me. I will answer." Then I put the phone down and walked the fence line. My heart thumped like a slow hammer. The first replies were harsh. Then a pause. Then a few people asked careful questions. "Did you really pay for school? How much was the wedding?" I answered each one with the same calm tone I would use to explain a bid. I posted tuition totals. I posted the first car receipt with private parts covered. I kept my voice steady. I did not attack anyone. By mid-afternoon, the shape of the conversation changed. A mason I have hired for years wrote, "This man paid my crew through a winter when no one else did." A teacher from the academy posted that I rebuilt the school steps after a storm. Someone shared a photo of me in a dust mask. Gray with concrete. The story became less about a wedding and more about a life. Calls shifted too. Tom from electrical said, "I saw your proof. Anyone who raised a kid knows what those numbers mean." Bob from the supply house said he stood with me. The city inspector called back and told me to keep the schedule. In the yard, the crew worked with a purpose that felt like a vow. By evening, my daughter's first post looked different under the record. Some friends deleted their anger. Others wrote new comments that sounded like questions. "When did the school start? Who paid what? Why were you at the hotel alone?" I did not answer those. They were not for me. At 6, a reporter from the local paper called. I agreed to speak if she kept it simple. She came with a small notebook and a calm voice. I showed her the binder. I said, "These are not debts, because I hate my child. They are reminders that love has cost, and that cost was carried by one person." She asked if I wanted an apology. I said I wanted my daughter to see me as a person again. The story went online before sunset. The headline was plain: Father shares decades of support after being excluded from daughter's wedding. The article quoted my statement and included photos of the summaries with private parts covered. It did not mention the in-laws. It did not need to. The shift that followed felt like a tide turning. People wrote that boundaries are not cruelty. They wrote that parents who give everything deserve a seat at the table they paid for. A pastor posted a line about respect being the first payment any child owes. A nurse wrote about her father who sold his boat to cover tuition and cried at graduation. I sat on the tailgate with Dave and watched the sky turn the color of wet slate. A new message arrived from a stranger. I am sorry for what I posted. I did not know. Another came minutes later. If my daughter spoke to me the way yours did, I would do the same. I put the phone away and looked at my hands. They were still calloused. They were still mine. Night came slow. I drove home with the radio low. The binder was on the seat beside me, like a passenger who never slept. I carried it inside and set it on the table. The house held me without judgment. Before bed, I opened my messages. There was one from my daughter. It had no anger. It had no orders. It had only 8 words. Dad, can we talk when you are ready? I did not answer. Not yet. The noise had faded. The truth was out. The city would talk for a week and then move on. But in our small family, the echo would last. Truth always does. The silence that followed the storm was different. It was not calm. It was the silence of doors closing. I knew it when I checked the news the next morning. The local paper had printed a follow-up. It quoted neighbors, business partners, even men from my crew. They all said the same thing. They had seen me sacrifice. They had seen me work. They believed the record I had shown. Olivia, however, was drowning. Her name trended on social feeds in ways no daughter ever wants to see. People called her ungrateful. They shared the photographs of receipts. They wrote that a father who paid almost everything deserved more than to be turned away. Every repost was a mirror she could not escape. By noon, I received a call from a friend who sat on the same charity board as Nathan's mother. He cleared his throat and said, "They are furious. They say Olivia lied to them. They say Nathan never knew the scale of your support." His voice dropped lower. "They're talking about dissolving the marriage already." That night, I finally listened to one of Olivia's voicemails. Her voice was raw. "Dad, everyone is leaving us. Michael won't talk to me. His parents say I deceived them. Friends won't answer. I don't know what to do. Please, please, pick up." I set the phone down and let the house stay quiet. Days passed, and the collapse spread like cracks in glass. Vendors demanded payment directly from Olivia and Nathan. Hotels refused extensions without cash. Guests who had once cheered for them whispered instead. Pictures of half-cleared tables from the wedding surfaced online. A public display of their private ruin. Michael began to unravel. His polished smile did not hold under pressure. I heard from another contractor, whose cousin worked with Michael's father, that the Anderson family demanded separation. Reputation, they said, was currency, and Olivia had bankrupted them. On the 5th day, I drove past the hotel downtown. Out front stood Olivia in the same coat I had bought her 3 winters ago. Arms wrapped around herself as if the fabric could shield her from the cold. Michael was nowhere near. A single suitcase rested by her feet. She looked smaller than I had ever seen her. A shadow of the woman who had dismissed me from her ballroom. That night another message came. "Dad, he's gone." Michael left. His family cut me off. Nobody is answering my calls. I don't have money for the bill. Please, I need you. Her words dissolved into sobs. I turned off the phone. It was not cruelty. It was necessity. She had to stand in the wreckage she had built. The downfall reached its peak the following week. A neighbor sent me a photo without comment. Olivia, sitting alone in a cafe, staring at an empty cup, her hair unbrushed, her eyes hollow. Around her, people kept their distance. No friends sat with her. No husband held her hand. No mother-in-law whispered advice. She had wanted me invisible. Now the world treated her as if she were the one who didn't belong. I sat at my table that evening with the binder open once more. Numbers never lied. They didn't scream. They didn't beg. They only told the story of a father who gave, and a daughter who took, until the balance could no longer hold. Olivia's world had collapsed. Not because I wanted it, but because truth finally stood where my silence had always been. The first time I answered her call was on a Sunday night. The phone buzzed across the table, her name glowing like a wound I could not close. I stared at it for 5 rings. 6. Then I picked up. Her voice was not the voice of the proud bride who had turned me away. It was cracked, small, and stripped of every layer of defiance. "Dad," she whispered. "I don't know where to go. Michael left me. His family won't even take my calls. I don't have anyone else." I closed my eyes and let the silence stretch. I needed her to feel the weight of it. Finally, I said, "You still have me, but not the way you used to." The sob that followed was sharp and broken. "I'm sorry. I was blind. I thought their world was everything. I thought I had to prove I belonged. And I threw you out to make space for them. Now they're gone, and I'm left with nothing." "Nothing," I repeated. "Nothing but the father who built your everything," she gasped, as if my words pierced more than her shame. I could hear her breathing, uneven, like a child again after a nightmare. She tried to speak but broke down instead. When her words finally returned, they came in fragments. "I saw the binder, the numbers. I never asked how you managed it. I never wanted to know. I let her speak. Every confession poured out like water from a cracked dam. The designer clothes, the tuition demands, the wedding lists that treated me like a clerk, the lies she had told Michael's family to hide how much I had given. Each admission was a knife turned inward, but I did not pull them out for her. At last she said the words I had waited decades to hear. "I was selfish. I was cruel. And I don't deserve you." I gripped the phone until my knuckles whitened. My voice came low and steady. "You don't deserve me, Olivia, but you are still my daughter. That is the one thing that cannot be undone." She cried harder, the sound raw, almost animal. I wanted to reach through the line and hold her, but I stayed where I was. She had to sit in the ashes before she could stand again. "Tell me," I said. "What do you want now?" Her voice broke into a whisper. "I want to change. I want to be the daughter you once believed I could be. I want to earn back your respect." "Respect," I said, "is not given. It is built. Are you ready to build, even if it takes years?" "Yes," she said, fierce through her tears. "Yes, I'll do anything." For a long time, I said nothing. The clock ticked. The refrigerator hummed. And my daughter's breath carried across miles of silence. When I finally spoke, my voice was heavy with both love and warning. "Then listen carefully. This is the last time you will cry to me without action. From now on, every word you speak must be followed by proof." Her breath hitched. "I understand." "No," I said. "You don't yet. But you will." The call ended there. Not with comfort, but with a broken daughter clutching at the one lifeline left. She had fallen from her throne of entitlement into the dust of reality. And though my heart ached to gather her up, I knew the fall had to finish before she could rise. That night, for the first time since the wedding, I slept. We met at a small diner. Rain tapped the windows. Olivia sat in a corner booth with her hands around a mug she did not drink. When she looked up, she did not try to smile. I slid into the booth. The server left us alone. I set my palms on the table. "No speeches," I said. "Only terms. If you accept them, I will help you survive long enough to stand on your own." She nodded. "First, employment," I said. "You will find a job within 2 weeks. Any honest work. Restaurant, retail, office assistant. Do not wait for perfect. Take what is available now. Pride is a bill you cannot pay." She swallowed. "I can do that." "Second, no money requests. For 6 months you will not ask me for cash. You will live on wages. You will call me once a week on Sunday night and tell me how many hours you worked and what you learned. If you miss 2 calls in a row, the agreement ends. Her fingers tightened on the mug. Third, face the people who carried your wedding. Call the florist, the caterer, the quartet, the photographer, the hotel. Apologize. Offer a plan when you can. Do not blame me. Do not blame anyone. Speak as an adult who understands cost. Tears rose quick and hot. I hurt them, she said. I did not think about their work. Fourth, make a budget. Food, rent, transport, phone. We will write the numbers together. Track every dollar for 6 months. At the end of each month, send me a copy. If you hide purchases, the agreement ends. Fifth, return gifts you do not need. Designer shoes, extra dresses, jewelry bought for show. Sell what you can. Keep what has use. Keep the quilt. It was your mother's hands in cloth. It stays with you. She blinked. I have the quilt, she whispered. I carried it from the hotel. It is the only thing that felt warm. Sixth, invest in yourself. Not with luxury. With work. I will pay for 3 sessions with a counselor. Talk about grief and pressure and shame. If the first person is not a fit, try another. Learn how to stand without a crowd. She looked down. I did not know I needed that. I think I do. Seventh, after 3 months of steady work, begin to repay a small amount each month. Not to clear the full total. That ledger is not a collection. It is a mirror. The repayment is a practice of respect. We start with $100. We raise it when you can handle more. She nodded slowly. I can do that. I want to do that. I set a plain envelope on the table. Inside is $800. Not a reward. A bridge. It covers a week of a modest room and simple meals. Beside it is a prepaid card for groceries. $200. When it is gone, it is gone. Send me a photo of every receipt. Trust needs walls while it heals. She touched the envelope with 2 fingers like it might break. Thank you, she said. Her voice shook. I do not deserve this. No, I said. You do not. But you can earn it. That is the point. We spent the next hour writing a budget on the back of the receipt. Rent for a room, not a suite. Bus pass instead of ride shares. A cheap phone plan. Work shoes that can last. We called 3 motels and found one with a weekly rate. I gave my name for the reservation, but told the clerk that all charges would be covered by cash in the envelope. No cards on file. When we hung up, Olivia dabbed her eyes with a napkin. I am afraid, she said. I do not know how to do any of this without you fixing it behind me. You will be afraid. I said, you will also be proud. The first time you buy groceries with money you earned, you will feel it. The first time you pay rent on time, you will sleep better. Fear and pride will stand together. Let them. She studied my face. Do you forgive me? Forgiveness is not a switch. I said, it is a road. Today we start walking it. You will take the first steps. I will meet you along the way if you keep moving. She reached across the table. I let her take my hand. It was the first time in years our hands met without a request for money in the same breath. Her grip trembled. Thank you for not leaving me. I thought of Claire. I pictured her standing by the door, tired from chemo, smiling at the sight of our daughter holding on. The memory tugged at something deep. I squeezed Olivia's hand once and let go. We stepped outside under weak sun. The rain had stopped. The air smelled like wet earth and coffee. I walked her to the bus stop and waited until the bus turned the corner. She held the envelope in one hand and the quilt box in the other. When the doors opened, she looked back at me. I will call you Sunday, she said. Do your work. I said, then call. She nodded and stepped on. The doors closed. The bus pulled away in a cough of diesel and hope. That night I opened the binder and added a new page. I titled it, Agreement. I wrote the 7 terms in plain words. I added the date and signed my name. I left a line for hers. She would sign when she was ready. The page waited like the rest of the record. Patient and clear. Before bed, I sat with the quilt across my lap and traced the seam where Claire had stitched our daughter's name. I whispered a promise to the quiet room. I will always love her. I will also expect her to love me back in the language of responsibility. Then I turned off the light and let the house rest. Somewhere across town, a bus carried my daughter toward a small room and a new beginning. Somewhere inside her, the first bricks of a better life were finding their place. I hoped they would hold. Sunday evening arrived, and right on time my phone buzzed. Olivia's name appeared. For a long moment I just stared at it, remembering the weeks when her calls only carried demands. I answered. Her voice was different now. Tired, steady, cautious. Dad. I worked 32 hours this week. Coffee shop on 4th Street. My feet ache. My hands smell like espresso. But I made it. She paused. They gave me $60 in tips. It felt like gold. I listened in silence, letting her fill the space with her small victories. She spoke of learning the register, of cleaning tables, of struggling with rude customers without crying. Each detail sounded ordinary, but to her it was a mountain climbed. When she finished, I asked, and how did it feel to hand over your own money for rent? She let out a shaky laugh. Heavy, scary, but good. I've never felt good paying for something before. Weeks passed, and the rhythm held. Every Sunday she called. Each time, the report grew longer. Hours worked. Bills paid. Meals cooked from groceries she bought herself. She even told me when she stumbled, like the day she spent too much on takeout and had to eat crackers for dinner until payday. I didn't scold her. I let the lesson speak for itself. 3 months in, she slid an envelope across the diner table. $100. Her first repayment. Her hands shook as if it were a confession. I accepted it without ceremony and tucked it into the binder. A small entry among giants. But it mattered more than all the rest. By the 6th month, she had moved into a shared apartment. She sent me a photo of her first grocery list, handwritten on scrap paper. Rice, eggs, bread, peanut butter, laundry soap. At the bottom she had written, "Thank you for teaching me this." Our calls began to change. They weren't reports anymore. They became conversations. She asked about my work, about the crew, about the house. She listened, really listened. For the first time in years. One Sunday she said softly, "Dad, I walked past the Grand Hotel last night. They were hosting another wedding. I heard the music. I thought of what I did to you." Her voice trembled. "I can't erase it. I can only keep proving I've changed." I closed my eyes. The memory sharp as glass. "You don't erase scars." I told her, "You grow around them." A year later, I sat once again at that same diner booth. Olivia arrived in her work uniform, her hair tied back, her face tired but proud. She set down another repayment envelope, this one larger. I looked at her. She smiled faintly. "It's not about the money anymore." "Is it?" "No." I said, "It's about respect." She reached across the table, just as she had months before. This time her hand was steady. "Dad, I love you. Not for what you give me, for who you are." The words sank deep, stronger than any check or gift I had ever written. I covered her hand with mine. "That's all I ever wanted. When we left the diner, the sky was clear. The air smelled of spring, alive and forgiving. Olivia walked beside me, carrying no gown. No illusions, only the quiet strength she was building piece by piece. The binder still waited at home, its pages heavy with years of sacrifice. But now, for the first time, I believed it would one day close. Not because the debt was paid, but because the lesson was learned. The new beginning was not perfect, not easy, not quick, but it was real. And in the end, real was enough.